Okay, impatient gardening joke. How do you tell which vegetables are not ripe? They're the ones without the bugs. So yes, here at Impatient Gardening, we specialize in bugs, weeds, unripe and inedible fruits and vegetables. We have very little of the normal, more commonly desired, perfectly ripe fruits. We go straight from unripe to rotten and bug-ridden. The in-between we haven't really caught on to yet. I believe that's where the patience comes in. But no, we had a lot of fun in our season of impatient gardening. And some of you might remember back in May we started this all impatiently in the middle of the night, and we have learned a lot from it, and what we're going to do differently next year, and what a lot of things are. Like, we had never grown watermelons before. We got a few watermelons that were edible. They were like 4-bite sized watermelons, not like personal, like snack sized watermelons. That's a thing. I learned about growing okra. This is okra here for, you know, those of you that are in Washington and have never seen an okra plant before. And this here, just so you know, is not what you want. You don't want okra this big. This is what happens when you start a garden and you don't have time to come and harvest it. Okra, you have to like come and harvest like every day. So you get like okra that's like that big, not that. That's all woody and gross and not good to eat. Pigs might want to eat it. I don't know. This weekend I'm gonna take all this and see if some of it will be composted and whatnot. That was the zucchini plant over there. Never worked out. They all got planted way too close together and it never just grew right. Never produced anything. It made a lot of nice orange flowers every morning. Every morning I drive by and like, oh, look at those zucchini flowers. Oh, didn't go anywhere. And then these were pumpkins. These were supposed to be Atlantic giant pumpkins or something. They're Atlantic nothing pumpkins. Since the grass got real tall and the squash bugs really set in. You can't see any here now, but they just destroyed the like vines that they grow on from the root on out. And so, yeah, it might look nice up here, but it's not nice back there. So yeah, you can see it tried. These pimentos actually turned out pretty good. I just harvested a whole bunch of them. There's still a few here. See if Sheila can harvest those this weekend. She's off the next couple days, and I know she likes to come out here. I left her a lot of tomatoes. The tomatoes did really, really well. I mean, like, explosively well. Like, on crazy steroids crack well. Like, wow. The cherry tomatoes, I should say. Cherry tomatoes, tons of tomatoes, thousands of tomatoes. Look at all those delicious little tomatoes. Ooh, they're so good. These are like sweeter than sweet little red tomatoes. And they grew right up. I had made some cages for them out of some like fencing, or I think they're actually concrete forms that I found on the property. But they just exploded right out of those onto the ground, tumbled down. But these guys over here were like more of the like beefsteak style. And I can kind of see some larger tomatoes here, but we ended up with just one large tomato. We had a couple that showed up, but they rotted before they ripened, which is really what we've had the biggest deal with. All the corn and beans and squash we planted for our Three Sisters thing. So here's how that worked. The corn shot up and was amazing to watch grow and whatnot. But what ultimately happened is I think, got 2 edible ears of corn. Most of our corn has ended up looking like this or not ripe at all. So, hey, look, it's a bug. Thanks, little buddy. The beans, we didn't really see any beans. They grew up. You can see the like vines of beans growing up. I mean, it was neat to watch, but I didn't really see any beans. The squash and the pumpkins, they took off. Super crazy, kind of like the tomatoes. We got a fair amount out of them, but again, once the grass grew up, and you know, again, we started the garden without having a great plan for it and having it ready to be a garden. That's, you know, the biggest thing to learn is, you know, plan ahead. But that you can see, like, all the squash and stuff are growing in all of this grass right here. And you can see I left a lot of stuff. I went and harvested everything that was harvestable. That pumpkin's actually full of bugs. I left the stuff that has tons of bug holes in it. It wasn't close to ripe and had that in there. This will all end up being compost or pig food. But yeah, there it is. We've learned a lot from it, and you can see down here the vines withered and died. Those squash bugs worked quick too. Like one day everything was just growing crazy down here, and then a week later it looked like this, just destroyed. You see there's another one of those that had hopes of being a giant pumpkin, but nope. Maybe next year. We definitely learned a lot. We learned a lot how fast some things grow and how slow things grow, some grow, and how much room we need and how much shade a row of corn produced on the hill for anything that's behind it. So we learned awful lot, you know. And patience gardening is a good way to learn how not to do things, learn how things go sideways. So this is what I got today out of it. And you can see there's the pimentos. There's some more normal sized okra. There's some spaghetti squash, some pumpkins, and then there's some other stuff. And then there's, what the cuss is that? Like, look at this thing. When they started growing, they were green, all right? And they grew like this big, and they were this big in like a month, like bang. And we planted spaghetti squash seeds and sugar pumpkin seeds. Spaghetti squash, sugar pumpkin seeds. What the cuss are you? There's two of them. There's one in there too. And they didn't come from the same place either. They came from like different sides. So I'm curious to see what it's like when I open it up. It looks like it might have gotten eaten a little bit by bugs. Like I said, bugs everywhere. That's the thing we grew the most, was bugs. Which I'm covered in because I was in the woods today marking trees. But that's how the impatient garden ended up. Next week, this will be all covered in black plastic and sit that way for a week or two. And then we're gonna plant some experimental winter crops for pig fodder, like beets and root vegetables and some things like that, things that can grow in the fall and winter. We'll catch up with you then. Thanks, everybody.